People don't know. Can I use that microphone? I'm just going to say that. First round of breakout sessions will begin.
Okay, are we live? Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How's everybody?
Yeah.
Good? Ready to talk technology in Appalachia, right? So to set the stage, and before I reintroduce these three folks that we have here, some of you might have a question of why is a community bank like New People's Bank hosting a conversation about technology in Appalachia? Well, there are two reasons for that. We love our technology in our bank. We have world-class technology team. And the reason we love technology is because it keeps us close to our customers. We see it as a path to keeping the traditions of banking robust and at the same time making it easy for our customers to do business and to lead their lives. The second reason we're hosting this conversation is because we believe that the technology sector is a robust technology sector is more than a possibility in our region. It's becoming a reality. So on those lines, just to continue with kind of giving some context, because we'd love to have questions as we're talking. It's going to be kind of interactive and relaxed. If you don't have questions, that's okay, because we'll keep this going. You'll find that these three are great conversationalists. So as we get started, two kind of disparate anecdotes to set the stage. We were in Johnson City last week, and we heard a State of the City address by Mayor Brock. And she spoke about something that's very interesting that they're focused on. It sort of gives them a context for what they're doing to develop the economy in Johnson City. She talked about purposeful leadership, and there are 7 components in the way they define that, leading their economic development there. And these are all about technology, if we think. Innovation, targeting high tech as a sector there, targeting startups, targeting entrepreneurs, using incentives wisely, developing the workforce, and matching employers to opportunities. I thought that was kind of, it just pinged us that they're having that conversation right here in our region across the state line. The second one was a couple of weeks ago, our Washington County Chamber of Commerce helped cut the ribbon on a new business in Damascus. Everybody knows where Damascus is, right? So it's a bakery, and it's called Little Bits Baking Company and Provisions. And Tanya and Becky, the founders, I have the card right here. I brought it so I could read to you what they have on the back of the card. Quote, "Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world." Unquote. Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So we have 3 people who are doing little bits of good and then some. You've heard this morning about Wendy and Dario already, and their choice to put a startup in Appalachia. The other person down there is a guy you should know, and he gets mad when I say this, but I'm still going to say it anyway. He's a national treasure, and he's right in our backyard. Of course, maybe we're in his backyard and he's in the front yard, Rusty Justice. Before I knew I was coming back to Virginia 3 years ago, I was sitting in my office in San Francisco reading Wired magazine and reading about this guy who heard Mayor Bloomberg of New York City say, "You can't teach a coal miner to code." You can't teach a coal miner to code. So instead of flashing and raging, Rusty took it as the engineer that he is and said, "Wait a minute, is that right?" And what he discovered was that there are parallel synergies and parallel tracks between coal mining and coding software. Thus, BitSource was born in Pikeville, Kentucky. The reason Rusty is a national treasure is he doesn't think of himself that way. He doesn't get above his raising, as we like to say in our part of the world. He tells our story, and at the same time, he's looking forward to what we can be doing, and technology is a path to that, to standing on the shoulders of our coal traditions and what we're still doing in coal. So, that said, I want you to know Rusty, then Wendy Marquez, and Dario Marquez. And we'll kickstart the conversation, and please just raise your hands if you have a question and want to participate. We do want to keep this pretty relaxed. For now, I'm going to stay over here so that you can focus on them. But we'll kickstart the conversation first with a question I'd like to put to Rusty to start, and then see how Wendy and Dario want to weigh in. In our prep for this, we thought about several aspects of technology in Appalachia, and one of them is mindset. How do we look at technology and entrepreneurship? Because for us to do technology in our region, we're going to have to be entrepreneurial. And the three of these folks are clearly entrepreneurs in that regard. So, Wendy and Dario have a vision to create owner-operated technology solutions. In Rusty's case, and Rusty, this is why I'm starting with you, you decided to enter a business you knew nothing about. With that, Mayor Bloomberg didn't know he was issuing a challenge, right? But you used that to inspire you. Can you talk about whether you think we have the mindset yet to do technology in Appalachia?
Well, thank you for your kind words.
You're very welcome. Don't be mad.
Whenever Mary brags on me like this, I always remember my dad in my ear, and he says, "You can brag on a fool, and he'll work himself to death." So I always take these compliments with a grain of salt. But anyway, the mindset, I think, is really the first thing. I'm an engineer, so we start at the foundation and critical path, and always first things first. And you can't change until you believe you can change. So the reimagination piece of what we did at BitSource, and we're now in our 5th year, and we still have all those coal miners are still there with the exception of one. We started with an initial cohort of 10, and 9 of them are there programming, writing software today. And one of them's from here. Spoke to him this morning. But when we offered these 10 positions to people that were unemployed, paying positions with no skills, we offered 11. And one guy had already lost his house, his car. He had the same aptitude as these 10, all of which proved they could do it. And the day one, he didn't show up. He had a minimum wage job working in a sawmill loading pallets. And he lost his home, lost his car, was still trying to support his family. And when I called him, and we were offering him $15 an hour to start, and he didn't show up. And so I called him, and I said, we started this morning. Where are you? And he said, man, I'm just a dumb old coal miner. I can't do this. I can't learn to code. So he defeated himself on day one. So fundamental changing Central Appalachia, and I don't distinguish that Lynn and I, my business partner, started BitSource. We started it together. We don't differentiate between southern West Virginia and eastern Kentucky and southwest Virginia. It's Central Appalachia. It's a coal field, same people, political boundaries. And so to change Central Appalachia, we really have to internally. We've got an internal challenge and an external challenge, but the internal challenge is we do have a digital literacy deficit, no doubt about it, especially in our small business community. But we have to convince ourselves that it's doable, and so that is a key piece to the whole puzzle, I think. And so it's one of the things we did very early on. I think it's why BitSource succeeded, is we had those conversations every day. What does it mean, and what are we doing, and why are we doing it, and why can't we do it? And so we never asked ourselves why, why not? I mean, why? We just said, why can't we? And we have to. As one of our developers said, it was motivation through starvation, and I think that's really sums it up.
Dario, how would you, as someone who, you and Wendy chose to locate Wise Solutions here in our region when you had options to do so in other parts of the Commonwealth, how does what Rusty's saying about mindset either affect, did you consider that when you were coming here? Did you detect that? Do you think it's something we need to work on kind of institutionally, or how do you feel about that?
Well, to answer that question, I would say that Wendy and I have a profound belief in the ingenuity and the creativity of the human spirit, or we wouldn't be doing this. So everywhere we went, we found that. What the difference was that this area, in particular we ended up in Abington, they had a couple of things that were just a little further down the road than others, and we saw that. So that there was criteria that we were looking for. Number one was the demographics. Was there enough people in the area that we felt comfortable that we could start a business that eventually could employ 100, 150 people? Number two was, were the local leaders and the political leaders and the civic leaders all sharing the sandbox? Were they working together? And because getting them to work together, we're impact investors. So getting them to work together was beyond our pay grade. They had to have this already, and they were. And then the other things was the educational institutions. But getting to your question, Mary, there is no question that throughout all of the regions, this idea of that there's desire to excel was there on all the regions. None of them suffered from that. It's just that Abington seemed to be further down the path in these other areas which were important to us at the time.
Great. Wendy, kind of as a segue to follow on to what you said this morning, and an aspect of how do we get strategic about this, where do you see this mindset question in the continuum of how we attract partners, how we deal with the government aspects that you talked about, the procurement issues? How does mindset work into this? Is it a major thing we tackle first, or what should our strategy be?
Obviously, when you're trying to create change, you have to work on different areas. You can't just go in one direction, because if you want change to happen, you have to tackle all the different issues and in multiple occasions. So I think that changing the mindset that work can be done remotely is key. It's key. We're already doing it. We're already sending jobs overseas. So we just need to make sure that the Commonwealth and the federal government understand that if we are serious about creating jobs in rural communities, we have to do business in these rural communities. There's no question about it. And in my opinion, I think that we have put a lot of emphasis on attracting large businesses, but we have not put emphasis in growing small businesses that are headquartered in these communities. And I keep telling you, the headquarter piece is very important, because if these small businesses are headquartered in their communities, they're going to have significant impact in these communities. They're vested in those communities. They're vested in the success of those communities. So I think that is very important when it comes to the micro piece.
Do you guys think, and Rusty, this goes back to what you were saying about the one employee, the mindset aspect is how close are we to becoming comfortable with moving out of we need big employers in here to employ large amounts of people at once. How close are we to that micro strategy of helping people become comfortable with the risks of entrepreneurship or remote work or working solo? For example, you could, as you guys grow, you might be able to employ somebody 20 miles out of Abingdon or 20 miles out of Pikeville. Are we there yet? And what do we have to do to get there? The gig working, the remote working? Is that to me is part of this mindset question. Would you agree?
Yes. I think that's part of the piece that we just are figuring out. And we figure out that through things like this. You know, we met a fellow here last night that I would say there's a good possibility that at some point in time, his services and our services will network into, something that's beneficial to both. So there are technical skills here and a lot of, 1 and 2 man shops. I always say when we started BitSource on day one, we were the largest tech company in Eastern Kentucky anyway. So, and so that's not a brag. It's just a state of the industry that we were in. So we didn't even have anyone to network with. So we've had to work really hard to build a network, and that's what we do. And I came over a month or two ago and toured the computer science department at SWVA here, and was very impressed and looking to meet people, just to meet and understand people in our industry, because I come from the coal industry and we knew everyone in every level of that industry. We had a network. And so there's levels of expertise when you come. And tech is so complex, no one person knows it all. It requires collaboration. It requires density. Tech density is one of the things we need. And you want technically minded people, and then they see their neighbor doing it, and then they learn, and you build that institutional knowledge that just is that's there in the like we know about coal. We all understand at some level about coal around here because it's been our industry. But that workforce, and there's a lot of them, they have these cultural legacies that they pass down. But many of those skills are transferable to technology, and we don't even question that anymore as a. So what these folks are doing here, they recognize that these skills are transferable. They're finding a workforce here, and they bring with them a network. So that's very valuable. But the point they make about headquartering here is important. It's crucial that we like to think we'll have that silver bullet and Amazon will locate here. Well, when we have Amazon here, guess what? We've got another coal industry. That one big thing that when it's down, we're down. And when you have the small to medium-sized businesses, you have a more resilient economy.
Dario, go ahead. Please.
I want to follow up on that. We came here with a mindset, and I would challenge you. Wendy and I are investing in this, but we're open. This is an experiment, and so we're open to your suggestions and your ideas, and we want you to participate with us. So the mindset we felt was that the government had a strategy, which we call macro, which bring a big business in here, give them incentives, and they will come and they will create jobs. And the idea is hopefully they'll create jobs. And from that, they thought, well, then small businesses will emerge. That didn't happen. And because incentives alone do not create an economy or an ecosystem, but you need both. So where our mindset is, you need a macro strategy and a micro strategy. The macro strategy will bring a company in, and that's important, but the micro strategy will bring small businesses in, and that's important. And why is it important? Just as we're discussing, because you don't want to have one major employer, but you also want to have employee diversification. So the employee has a right to work for more than one person. So if you have multiple employers, then the employers will treat the employees with the respect and the things that they need, or they'll move to another employer. But they shouldn't move out of the region. They should move to another employer here in the region. So you need to have this ecosystem. So the state needs to work with both the big companies and the small companies to launch here, to give both diversification of employment, but also to create an ecosystem. This is what we're trying to do here. We're an experiment here. So we're working with SAIC. We're a subcontractor to SAIC. We're grateful to have them, but we're headquartered here. They're not. We're headquartered here because we believe you have to be headquartered here. We don't live here, but this business is going to be turned over to its employees because the employees should own that business. They should be here. They're vested in their community. And the people that are vested in their community are going to make decisions that are important to their community. And we think that's the key to having a system that works. A big company that gets headquartered in Northern Virginia or Canada or somewhere else, but small businesses that are surrounded in this area that work together. That, we think, creates a regional concept and changes the paradigm.
Do you think that to create the ecosystem you're talking about, we should be reaching out to, for example, Silicon Valley? And if so, how should we be doing that?
I'll let the others jump in here, but I think one of the things that we need to tap into, that we have tapped into, is, and I think the partners have to come together, but one of the things that we need to do is get investment from the private sector. I think this region needs to figure out a way to tap into impact investors. If you could tap into an impact investor, the investor will come here and want a return, but an impact investor wants a reasonable return on their investment. That's a good thing, and it's a good thing because it creates a real business. It creates a real business that has to really survive under real business rules. So it has to provide good service. The employees have to be well trained. There has to be programs for the employees, but there has to be something where the business can grow as a business should grow. But the idea in the beginning is, I believe that we need to have a system where we can attract those investment dollars who are then going to go into small businesses. That means that we have to then have entrepreneurs who have, and the mentorship that the impact investors bring to help those entrepreneurs get started, get that business going, and then they withdraw. But I think this creates the ecosystem that you want. And the interesting thing is, I want to say to you is, we've created jobs in Abington. So there are 8 jobs. We believe here shortly there'll probably be 12 jobs, and then our goal is to get to 50 and eventually 100 jobs. But those jobs have been created without one dime of money coming from any state or federal agency. It was private sector dollars to get it. And the beauty of that, it gets us started right away. It gets started right away. You don't have to deal with the bureaucracy of dealing with government stuff. An entrepreneur gets together with another business people and say, this is a good business for us to do, and you get started. So it leads the way, and then the government can come in behind and see how they can support it. That's the way we're trying to do it, and if it works, God willing, they'll take this show on the road.
Can you guys, Wendy, I know you're getting ready to say something, but could you give us a little sidebar on what impact investing is, and even how is that different from venture capital, financial loans through banks like ours? How's that different?
Yeah. An impact an impact investor really wants to make social change, but they make social change using the economic models that they've grown up with. So what they want to do is invest in something that's scalable. But what they're really, really saying is, rather than make the returns that I would if I were to start up in an IT company in Northern Virginia and I expect to be able to turn it around in 3 to 5 years and sell it and get my money back plus, an impact investor is saying, there's a reasonable return, but I want the rules of the game to be the same as if I was investing in a business for which I wanted a substantial return. So it means you have to have good management, good product, good service, good policies and procedures, all the things that make a real sustainable business, and we will help. The idea is, and I believe in it, or Wendy and I wouldn't be doing it, is that it creates a real sustainable job, not something that relies on a gala or a not-for-profit or something to keep it going. It relies on the ingenuity, creativity of the people that are working there to make it go. It becomes a real business that's sustainable. The impact investor then turns the business over. The goal from the very beginning is to turn the business over to those that are here or in the community, not to control it yourself. And I think that's the key, because we're trying to make it's a vehicle by which we can make social changes through the economic business model.
Wendy and Rusty. Wendy, let's start with you. So impact investing, the way Dario has explained it, is do we reach out to regions outside and tell them the story of how they can be part of this success? Is that strategic to do that, or is that pie in the sky?
No, I think we definitely should reach out. I think that the work that Rusty's doing, the work that we're doing, are great examples that doing technology in these communities work. Obviously, success breeds success. And I think that, we have been approached by other impact investors who said to us, if you can make it work there, we will be willing to come and invest with you in other regions of the Commonwealth.
Huh.
So obviously for us, we want to make sure that we succeed, not just because we will attract impact investors to create other IT hubs throughout the Commonwealth, but for us it's important that we succeed because we owe it to the people that we're working with.
So I'm going to toss this to Rusty right now, because that's an interesting comment to me. I would like to say to somebody who says, let's see if you make this work, is it possible? And Rusty, you're interacting with Google, MIT, Carnegie Mellon. Would it be appropriate to say, well, why don't you lean in with us and become part of this story instead of waiting for us to do it on our own, and here's how we do it? Does that make sense, or is that also a little pushy?
Well, when you start with, when you're working, you have two examples here, working the same problem from the different side. We're
right.
working, they came from the outside in, and we come from the inside out. So they did an article on us in Fast Times, and I thought it was a racing magazine. Fast Company. And I thought it was a racing magazine. I still don't know the name of it. And that was a big deal. People in the tech industry say, we go forever trying to get a mention in that.
That's right.
I have some friends down in Lexington. They went crazy about it, and I didn't mean anything to me. So we didn't know anyone, okay, to ask those questions of. And but like these folks, we've done it with private investment. We put our own money into this thing, and so we've been able to pivot and learn. Build, measure, learn. That's what we do, and so as we figured it out, but we do think the point that Wendy makes about success breeds success is so important. It would not be a good thing for BitSource to fail. This weekend, maybe some of you saw there was an article in the New York Times about the group in Pennsylvania and West Virginia that took training dollars and trained, and then gave people false hopes. And because we started with untrained, unskilled workers, and we trained first, people always have thought we were a school. Well, we were just hired employees that we needed to do this business and gave them the skills to do the business. And so, and so things like that fail reinforce these stereotypes.
The other thing,
and tarnish what we're trying to do.
Right, and the thing that the three of you have expressed is the idea of we're providing quality service here too. That Rusty, you used the term once, Appalachian coding, as opposed to, because I asked you a question when you were at the Southwest Virginia Technology Council meeting. I asked a question of, or at that event, which is how you came over to this side of the state line. What is it that we have to do to show that our coding is of a quality nature. And you, again, took the engineering approach, had these schools come in and look. Why is it important to attracting partners to say, we're an outsource, yes, but we're a quality outsource. We're not a farm. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
You know, our objective from day one was to offer and provide jobs with the equivalent earning potential of the lost mining job. That, you know, coal mining was our best paying jobs, and so, you know, that was our objective, to level these folks up gradually as they gain skills, and we earned business to replace that. If we wanted to do $12 an hour jobs, we could have 300 employees. And I think BitSource now, I asked this morning, there's 16. We started with 10. There's 16 folks work there now, and we provide all the administrative out of our other businesses. So it's just in production. Our production elements, you know, 16 people living in Pike, Kentucky, and Southwest Virginia and Clintwood, working for companies in the West Coast and the East Coast, and, you know, wherever we can find project work. But and then we're trying to build products. So by our people here, to echo, I agree with everything I've heard here today, is people here are really creative and resourceful. You know, Appalachian people have a creativity that's amazing, and if you equip them and, you know, and help them gain the social capital and the digital literacy skills that they need, and let them network. So we had two guys just got back last Saturday from Google I/O, and 5 years ago this guy was running a shuttle car in an underground coal mine. And so, you know, these guys can do it. Our people here are amazing, and they have a great work ethic.
so as I look
we
around.
just need to provide the ecosystem that they can flourish in.
So we have an opportunity right now to be very candid with I look around and I see some of our wonderful legislative teams from the Commonwealth of Virginia. What messages would you like them to carry back to our legislators in this regard in particular? And again, piggybacking on what Wendy said this morning. What, in that regard alone, that we are providing world-class service, because that's what we want to do. We're not settling for something that the market. So how do they help us as a gateway to maybe better legislation, these procurement aspects you were talking about this morning? What would you guys like to say to them as to their role?
Well, first, if I could mandate one thing, would be to say, please, let's come up with a total comprehensive strategy before we launch out. And by that, we have the tools here. Now we just need the strategy. And so the strategy be one which would be a comprehensive strategy that would take a macro and a micro approach. That, number one. And really think that through and invite the various parties to the table to come up with a comprehensive plan that says we're going to create an ecosystem in these communities that works, taking lessons from the past and adding that. The second thing it's saying is, if the state, by its actions, acts like it will not buy services from rural companies, then why should anyone else? So please, let's talk about the changes that need to go taking place to say, if your rhetoric, your actions need to match your rhetoric. So if your procurements come out and it appears that it favors the urban areas and at the exclusion of rural areas, then you got to change that, and it sends a signal. And so I think those are the things that we would want to see, is let's make sure that the state in its actions really comes out and is looking to say we really want to support these endeavors there, and that there's a policy to make sure that these endeavors can be successful.
I just want to be candid about a couple of things. It's the stereotyping and the perception. We've been meeting with many CEOs in Northern Virginia and other parts of the Commonwealth to talk about this idea. And sometimes I'm shocked about their stereotype that they have, but that there is no talent. Well, I know in the case of Rusty, you build the talent. In our case, we were very fortunate because we found tremendous talent. And the other thing that we realized when we started to have hiring sessions was that there was a gentleman who was working as a waiter, but the only reason why he was working as a waiter is because an IT company that he worked for laid everybody off. They closed down their business. And he needed to work, but he wanted to stay in the region. And he had tremendous IT skills. So the fact that there is no talent, Rusty has proven that there is talent. We are proving it that there is talent. So talent is not the problem, and education is not the problem. It's a lack of opportunity. Yes. The second thing I want to say is people say, oh, but you don't have the numbers that we need. Like I was talking to Ed Abrigo, we had lunch on Monday, and we said, yeah, maybe there is not thousands, but 100 good paying jobs will make a tremendous transformation in these communities. And I can guarantee you that in Northern Virginia, they need 100 good, qualified IT professionals. So I just think that sometimes we need to break the stereotypes a little bit, and we also need to change the paradigms, as I said earlier in my speech. The focus is on large companies. The focus is on attracting these large companies. Even the incentives for small businesses at the Commonwealth level, for a startup, they're very challenging. And so I just think that we need to change our mindset a little bit and figure, okay, do we really want to invest in these communities? And how are we going to create that investment in a way that will create small IT businesses that will then be a source of employment for the community, for the region?
Rusty?
I want to amen that. I believe one of the great untapped potentials of this region are the expatriated Appalachians. About a year ago, we were at an event like this doing a town hall at Google out in Silicon Valley, and when we were done, a group about this size with a moderator, much like this, there were 4 of us from BitSource out there, my partner and I, and the couple of guys that ran the company. And after it's over, a young lady comes up, and she's from Southwest Virginia, and she cries, and she says, God bless you, if you'll make me a job, I'll come home. And so the number of people that we've all seen our numbers dwindle. And I think one of the great untapped potentials of Central Appalachia is if we will create opportunity, our folks want to be here. Appalachian people want to be here. And I believe they'll come home. So last Friday, we had a celebration. We hired our first, he's 27, computer science degree, called, wanted to move home. And we were able to offer that young man a job. And he came home and started Monday. So I think if we create these opportunities, create these jobs, we can retrain and help folks here transition to a 21st century economy. And we can do that through, I hope I never have to train another person ever again, okay? That's not our objective. It's what we was just driven from necessity to make a quick action, to do something in the face of the loss of all the jobs in our community. But, our schools are catching up to the needs of a modern workforce. But I think also there's those people that would come home.
Dario?
I just wanted
go ahead.
to say something that we noticed when we came in is that there was all this talent and no opportunity, and how can we keep young people from leaving the region? Because once they leave, it's very hard to get them back. We can't prevent everyone from leaving, right? And I want to ask Dario to give the example of the Experience Incubator that we were able to work with our Southwest delegation and Governor Northam.
That's a perfect segue. I want something that we're pretty excited about, but I'll tell you that Delegate Kilgore and Senator Ben Chafin worked on with us. Exciting, but I want to say something to you. You mentioned, Mary, what would I say? I would tell the leaders, when we were having a discussion, we talked about this, the time is now. I like saying every economic problem has an economic solution if you think about it. But so if you're in Northern Virginia and you're an employer there, you're hearing all this stuff like, people, the other side of the story. There's traffic here, it's congested here, it's hard to get around here and things like that. And you're hearing that this is going to it's hurting your ability to attract workers. So what's happening? I remember I went to a forum, probably it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was a speaker coming talk to a group of people that was at the Chamber of Commerce that dealt with the Loudoun County Chamber of Commerce. And he was telling, maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago, he was telling them, hey, you need to get with it, Loudoun County, because you need, what's going to be the future is these town centers. And the town of Leesburg isn't it. It's a town center. And that is what's happening, and that's the future. Well, sure enough, they're creating town centers. In Tyson's Corner, which you would take your life in your hands 5 years ago to try to cross the street there, it was meant only for cars and not for pedestrians at all. There is a town center in the heart of Tyson's Corner right now. There are 4 metro stops there. What are they doing there? They're attracting kids from here or from anywhere, come live there. You don't need a car. And by the way, you can live there. The theaters are there. The restaurants are there. And there's 4 metro stops. You can be in Washington in 20 minutes. And you can work and live right here. So believe me, when they get their graduates from UVA-wise and they go there, they ain't coming home. You know what I mean? They're going to go there. So they're doing this because they say, hey, we need this need. They're fighting to get these people. So the need is now to do this. So one of the things that we did is we said it's not for lack of talent. Listen, you have the schools. It's not a lack of people. You have the people, they have the ingenuity, the creativity, the hard work, the work ethic. They love their communities. You have all that, hands down. So you have the education, you have the people. What's lacking here? Why isn't there a business here? Because a business can't come here because right now everybody wants experience. So a business starts here and it wants to hire one of these young people, but try to get on a government contract with Virginia, 3 years of experience. Well, if you're a small business, you can't have a bench of people that are not billable. So one of the things that we're working on, and we're working, and I have to give Mark Ashley, who's sitting right here, a lot of credit, who's working with us, we're coming up with the concept of an experience incubator. And so the idea would be that this partnering with the impact investors partnering with the state would then create experience incubators where we would take these young people, we would provide the mentors for them, they would come and work with us for a period of time, get the experience, but work on real contracts in the real world, build up their resumes. And so we're really excited about that because that gives a person a chance to graduate from UVA-wise or Radford or Virginia Highlands or any of these other colleges, a chance not to have to leave the area to get that experience, but come work with us and get that experience. And after 18 months, we guarantee that we'll give them a job. So when you graduate, come to us. We'll give you a job, we'll give you the experience, and then 18 months later, we'll make sure that you stay here working with us and you won't have to leave your community. So we're excited about that as a way of trying to keep people here without leaving the area.
And that idea was presented to the Southwest delegation. They came to visit our office. We got Delegate Pillion, we had Senator Chafin, Delegate Kilgore, and many others that came to visit the office. And we talked to them about it, and it resonated with them. He said, we've been doing the same things over and over again. Let's try something different. And thanks to their vision and their support, and also the support of this current administration, Governor Northam signed the bill which will take into effect in July 1st. So I think that this bill will definitely provide an opportunity for these young kids to have an opportunity to receive on-the-job training, but get paid also, because that's the key. A lot of these young people cannot afford to be working without pay.
Excellent. Rusty, You said something, I think, yesterday, and Dario, you did not use this word, but I think you were alluding to it. Without getting wonky or doing more studies, should we leave here today and encourage the development of a master plan that takes all of these things and more that we're talking about right now in this session, and build a plan that is regional, yet addresses these specific components, or is that too wonky to think about? Go ahead, Rusty, if you have a thought, or anyone.
Dario, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. I think one of the things that coming to an event like this, it brings people together and exchange of ideas, and I think that's always very, very positive. One of the things I think is, you keep doing the same things over and over and expect different results is, sign of insanity. So if it's not working, let's do something different. And I think it's all here right now, and I think what is needed is for the right players to come together and saying, what is the plan? What is the overall master plan that we are going to bring in to transform these communities and do it quickly and see results right away? So what is a plan that could attract private sectors to move quickly and get engaged? And one thing about the private sector getting engaged is that they can make decisions, act on them, invest their own dollars. The three of us here are here because we invested our own money. So we can move quick. We can make our own decisions. It's our own capital. We don't have to ask anybody else. But that's not enough. That gets you started. And then the next question is, what role does the community play? What role does the institutions of higher learning play? And what role does the state and federal government play? And I think there has to be a plan, but we can get started quickly. And I think that the elements are here to do that. And I just think the plan needs to be changed, which is a comprehensive and clearly understood for everyone that there is I keep going back, there's a macro strategy and a micro strategy, and when we said this, everyone in this room would understand that, and everyone would be, and then there's deliverables under that plan that can be achieved and are done. And if they're not done, we can ask why. Weren't they done?
Performance measures, right?
Yeah. So I think that's the key to doing this. I think that's very, very important.
I just want to say what I find encouraging is that our political leaders are unified in their desire to create jobs in rural communities. We talked to Senator Mark Warner, he believes in this. We talked to Senator Tim Kaine, he believes in this. We've talked to our Southwest delegation, they believe in this. We're unified. Our current governor believes in this. Previous governors have believed in this. And I'm sure the future governor will also want to do something about it. So our political leaders are unified. I just don't see why we're not getting the traction that we need. Now, I must say, I see some glimmers of hope, but I just think that it needs to be a candid discussion among our political leaders and trying to figure out how we can make these rural communities a priority at every level. Because maybe at the top level we understand it, but it's not percolating throughout the Commonwealth. And maybe that's the challenge that we have right now.
Rusty, how would you rise to that challenge?
Well, in the ecosystem that we keep referring to, there's really a role for the entrepreneur, the role for the government, a role for academia, a role for nonprofits, a role for corporations, a role for VC. And like Dario says, everyone has to agree this is our role, this is the part we're going to play, we're going to step up. Because I tell you, we're running two businesses in less than fertile soil. The environment that we're trying to create these opportunities in and risking our capital is not, and a lot of times, well-intended help that really doesn't help. And understanding the true needs and the role of each of those players in this ecosystem is so important, and that should be. I just once again I'll amen what the folks on my right just said.
I'd like to invite everybody in this room and others that you might know to connect with us today. And if you want, I'll give you my email after the session's over, and we can get this dialogue going and tap this energy today, and prevail upon these three minds that we have here, to continue to ask them for their guidance as well as the participation they've already exhibited. But let's figure this out. Let's work with UVA-wise. Let's work with the Southwest Virginia Technology Council. Let's figure this out of how we can get this into some kind of a structured, without being bureaucratic approach. I didn't see anybody with any questions, but I want to make sure before we close and ask Rusty, Wendy, and Dario if there's anything, any call to action they'd like to issue. Does anyone have a question or a comment? Oh yes, please. What's your name and where are you from? U.S. Small Business Administration. Kiana?
Yeah.
Mentoring. You know, we're very fortunate. You know, Dario ran a very successful government contracted business. He had over 2,600 employees. So he has a proven track record of running a business. I run television stations, so I run operations. So we understand how operations and how to run a business, but a lot of startups don't. So we always say to people, yeah, we are a startup, but with 20 plus years of experience. Mark Ashley, who's our vice president of operations, ran a facility, and he has over 30 years of experience. So what we are fortunate is that we have the access to mentoring in Northern Virginia. I mean, to this day, I go and talk to people and ask to be mentored.
The question that Wendy is answering, just in case nobody heard it, is once you're past the startup phase, what's the key to sustainability? And the answer is mentoring.
Mentoring.
Rusty, did you have anything to add? And then Dario, we're going to let you close. Or go. Oh, we had another question? Yes, sir. Your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Joy Baduri. I'm the Dean of the Davis College of Business and Economics at Radford University.
Radford, thank you.
Still get to call myself Dean. I have one question. This is a tremendous problem in many parts of our country, development of rural areas. It's always good to see entrepreneurs like you committed. But it's also good to have certain exemplars in mind as you develop your business. As you look around the country, are there other successful examples of other rural areas around the country, or perhaps in the world, that we could point to, learn from? That would be my question.
I'm going to repeat the question because we are live streaming. Professor Joy, correct, from Radford, asked the question of the panel, who can we benchmark? Is that a good way to paraphrase it? Around the country, because of the rural issues that we heard about this morning, are they aware of a success story that we should benchmark? Go ahead, just jump in.
I'm sure there are, and we've met a few. Since we, as we said, we kicked off from the shore that morning. But the first tech company that I was ever in, I owned half of. So my business partner and I were coal guys. We're like them. We'd ran a lot of businesses. We employed a lot of people. we just saw a need, and we learned that there was a need for software developers and an opportunity with an earning potential. And so we really were a little bit naive in that we didn't know what we didn't know. But, we'd both just read a book called Anti-Fragile, Things That Gain from Disorder. And in it, there was a story called the green lumber theory. And it's a long story, and I won't bore you with it. But the moral of the story is you don't have to know everything to know enough. And so we just started out, and then so we just knew that where we wanted to go, and we had 3 challenges. Could our workforce do it? And we checked that. Could we manage a software company? We think we can. And then can we win the respect of the marketplace? Because it's hard to do that. And so that's where we're working now. We're trying to network and grow our business.
Thank you. Go ahead, Wendy, and then Dario.
We have seen other businesses, however, their approach and the business model is a little different than ours, and they are more focused, yet they say they are rural sourcers, but they're more in urban, maybe semi-rural areas, and so it's a little different. They are making headways and they're succeeding, so I believe we can succeed too.
Amen.
Dario?
That's it.
That's it?
Thank you.
We're going to thank you so much for this. And Professor, thank you for that question, because I think the answer is we got 3 people right here doing it, don't you think? Great. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your lunch.